Hey everyone, welcome back to our podcast looking at successful use cases and case studies in the open banking and open finance world. I'm Mark Boyd, your host on our podcast, and I'm here with our guests, David, Mariana, and Jose. Hi all, how are you all doing?
Fine. Happy to be here once again.
We're ready to get into it. So this time around, we're going to be having a look at a case study from a German bank, Commerzbank. Let's have a look. Now, one of the benefits that they've had is that they've used APIs to be able to increase or reduce the time for a minimum viable product from 6 months down to 6 weeks. So they focused on batch processes and file transfers as a way of sharing information both internally and with fintech partners, and they've been able to introduce some monetization along the way. So how common is this kind of use case in businesses and banks that you're working with, Jose?
Okay, thanks, David, for bringing me here. Actually, this is one of the most used cases of open banking and embedded finance. Uh, you have to understand that most of these enterprises are already clients from the bank, and they are using the host to host, and the host to host works really well. But first, it requires a lot of overhead. You need back office people doing matching movements, transactions, and so forth. You have like these large files that has to be exchanged and have to be verified and then processed and verify the processing and so forth. Whereas the API help the banks and the enterprise to make it real time. So is helping both banks and enterprises reducing the back office and reducing overhead and increase the efficiency of the transaction. So is not commonly requested, but the demand is growing day by day. And one case brings forth many interests from other companies that want to replicate the case.
What do you mean when it's not people aren't asking for it? I think you said just then, or like, so I would have thought that the enterprise are saying, do you have an API that we can use? They're not saying that. It's normally they're happy with the host to host, but or they're sort of accustomed to that host to host at the moment.
Yeah, because I mean, banks are traditional, and
Yeah,
traditionally host to host is working, and it works.
right.
Okay, but then changing that is working for the promise of future promise that it will be better with an API is something not every enterprise dares to do. Okay, on the first instance, but once they see a case of a similar company using the APIs, then is when the interest for using APIs grows dramatically. So here is not the how to say like mouth to mouth
Right.
promotion of the APIs. A company that is using host to host and is working, they don't have many arguments to change the host to host. It's working, it's giving the service, so you have to go with the benefits, and it's not always a first intention of the company to change.
Right. So then with the bank, so when the bank's setting this up by API, the first thing that they need to do is put in metrics, or not first thing they have to do, but one of the initial things is put in some metrics so they can demonstrate to their other enterprise customers what the savings are, whether that be efficiency or time or accuracy.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
exactly, and that's the driver. Okay, once you have a success case, the success case will bring more cases, but you have to build on trying to get the how to say the confidence partner, if you want, to try it first.
Who are those confidence partners? Like how would a bank find that guinea pig?
Well, you have to understand that we have a set of corporations working with us. Some of them even we are partners on the equity of a company. So you try to see
Right,
if there is any participated by the bank. I can start from that one.
right.
Or do I have really good relationships with one because I have other business with them? I can go and do first with them and showcase to the rest of the companies.
So it's a little bit. The ecosystem idea comes in because you're actually looking at who, if if an ecosystem is say concentric circles of engage, of how much you're connected, you're looking for just that next level out where you've got a really strong relationship, maybe a partnership model in place, or a few projects together, and they're the ones who would be maybe best suited for testing this out with you. Great.
Yeah,
Is this a
exactly.
complicated? Sorry, Jose?
No, I say that exactly, that you don't want to bother a client that you are not too comfortable or that you don't have many ties with them, because this is a relationship and there is a
Right.
level of trust, and some of them will bear with some difficulties because it's a new API or you are testing a new API. Some of them don't. So you need to be really careful about what's your relationship with the company, and how to say, like test water with the most comfortable case.
Right. Right. Good advice. David, is this a complicated approach to doing a change in technology?
Yeah, I don't think so. It's as complicated as host-to-host communication works or not, or doesn't work, and the company wants to shift to an API paradigm instead of keeping with more legacy and traditional integration schemes. So it's true that file transfers and batch processes work. But they don't allow to, I would say, consolidate and create a real digital ecosystem. They work. Why? Because integration can be tricky. They are point-to-point technologies. So if you want to make your ecosystem grow, you need something more than point-to-multi-point technologies. And in this scene, APIs are better. Why? Because you provide an only point of contact with all your system, so that everybody can consume your APIs. Making this in a file transfer batch landscape will require making so many connections, so that it will be very difficult to manage that. That's why embracing API initiatives are better if you want to really build an ecosystem on top of them.
Right, right. And here you can see in this use case, they're talking about how Commerzbank is using that with their fintech partnerships and building that out. What's the difference in security concerns with moving from, I'm sure they've each got their own, security things that they've got to look after, I guess. What's the difference, or what are some of the things, if you were working with a bank, you would particularly tell them they need to look out with APIs that they might not be used to if they're used to host?
Yeah, in host-to-host environment, security is easier, I would say easier to manage. Why? Because you have point-to-point connections. So the environment is not distributed. So it's more manageable, the environment. You have point-to-point. In a point-to-multi-point or distributed environment, everything is scattered and spread all over the ecosystem. So security is much more complex. So you have to define policies, which is something that is true that you also have to do in host-to-host environment. But the implementation of those policies in a point-to-multi-point environment, it's more difficult. That's why having a good API management platform in place is really a requirement, because API managers allows you to control or to define and implement those types of security policies, and also other types of policies.
Right. Okay, cool. So especially with this sort of thing, you wouldn't be building your own. You're going to be using
No.
best in breed API management solution.
Yeah, it's better to use an API management platform, and also to put a lot of focus on API governance. Because governance is it means defining standards to keep coherence within your ecosystem, and that coherence makes your security decision easier to be implemented.
Right. Yep, because there's some consistency. Once you've kicked the tires and tested something, because you're using standards, that's going to apply for all of your future APIs as well.
Yeah.
What about, it says here, in this case, they're creating opportunities for API monetization. How does the technology support that?
Well, the technology is the less here. When you are thinking about revenues, what you have to do is to think in business terms. Technology there is always a way to support that. It's true that governance and that or using API management allows you to manage the API, so that you can make some kind of tracking of who is invoking which APIs, how the traffic is behaving, and from that behavior you can infer how are you going to charge for your partner, to your partner of the digital ecosystem.
Right. Okay, and then the API management can just handle, if you're doing it by API call or by subscription.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, you have a lot of API analytics, and from that analytics you can build a bill for the consumer, for example.
Right. And then overall, then, if you think about APIs improving society generally, what are some of the benefits for, these Commerzbanks in Germany? So what's the benefits for the German broader society, Mariana?
Yes. Well, as we are seeing in many other cases like this, because many companies are showing this kind of value, reducing connection, time to market, etc. We can see that the banks are unlocking the revenue stream, which encourages them for greater experimentation with future APIs. No, for fintechs, for example, this data exchange through this technology means less costs and reducing potential errors, and allows them to focus on their core business, which is giving a service to customers. Also, for customers, this brings a great value because they have more choices, greater variety of fintech products, and that Commerzbank could offer directly instead of the bank being locked out of that value chain where customers go elsewhere for the services they are looking for. Commerzbank is still connected via providing the underlying API. And we also know that, for example, Commerzbank is interested in other targets, for example, sustainability and a circular economy. So seeing this value generation and that the business successes like revenue, efficiency, and network optimization, then this means there is a greater interest across all of the bank management in experimenting with APIs in those frontier areas like circular economy and sustainability.
That's a really good point. So, because I imagine that that's a hard sell. I mean, I know there's the Green Deal in Europe and that sort of stuff, but it's still a hard sell within a bank to suggest invest in API work in those kinds of new areas. So given what Mariana's saying about that, Jose, then would having successes in APIs for these sorts of ERP connections or working with fintech so that they can provide new tools for customers, does that give the bank, that helps down the track when the API team want to explore things like, okay, we want to build APIs for green lending or for some other sort of ESG metrics? Does that mean that people within the bank's management are going to be more willing to make those bets in future if they've seen the success of these other APIs?
Okay, so banks will be interested in this kind of APIs for two reasons. The first one is that sustainability is one of the keys of the strategy of every single bank, not only mine. We have sustainability like the main guidance for the whole bank. Okay, and that affects all the areas of the bank. But now this is really beautiful and this is really nice to say we have sustainability. But in reality, business need a business plan, and the business plan need to be attractive enough. Okay, so for these cases, the business case is not always that attractive, but we can still push it forward because we have strategically to invest in sustainability. And I'm not thinking about the green loans, because green in the end loans are attractive. Okay, every single risk product is attractive because you have a risk and you can play with the interest and so forth. Those are okay.
Right.
But just imagine those about inclusion that we discussed that in the previous video.
Yeah.
And inclusion is not so easy to defend. Okay, it's part of sustainability, but then you need to make an effort for bringing the bank to understand that is a service to society, and actually depends on the country. That service to society is huge.
Right.
Okay, it's huge, and also you are leaving a mark on how things are done from the bank, and those are the kind of reasoning more than the business case itself, which may be not so appealing for starting or spending the investment of an API.
Right. I love Mariana, I love one of your other points you made as well, which is like the fintech are spending less money on inefficient parts of their operations.
Yep.
If they're providing the ERP, if they're providing like an ERP reconciliation tool or whatever, if they're just getting that straight into their software via the API, they're not having to do any work on potentially duplicative or manual handling of that data.
Exactly.
Sorry, Mariana. Just to bother that's a huge selling point. What Mariana just said, and I leave Mariana the word. Sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I just wanted to say that that is one of the points that the values that we're seeing, which is increasing efficiency. No, a lot of errors can be prevented with these automations, with this data sharing automated, and increasing efficiency is one of the very important values that we are identifying in the ecosystem.
Yeah, I
And
think
then
that also, sorry,
oh yeah,
I just want to point out one thing. APIs helps in this case. Remember that we have said that APIs are the main point of entrance or on consumption exposure of data. So if you handle efficiency here in the entrance point, you will handle it. You will have efficiency for everything. So APIs will help to streamline processes, making them more efficient.
great. I was going to ask David as well, then with something like it moves it away from batch processes and file transfers being a end of day reconciliation or whatever the time frame, and to move it more, the technology helps move into more real-time reconciliation as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think at the end everything will be APIs. But why? Because they are easy to use, easy to manage, easy to secure, easy to almost everything. Of course, that APIs are not the best solution for integrations. You can consider in some cases another options, but talking in general, I think they are the best options for the requirements we are currently having in banking landscape.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you all. What about so just to wrap up then, any final words on if you were working with a bank or around something like their batch files, their batch filing processes, what would you be encouraging them as, like the reason why to get into this use case?
Well, I would recommend embracing APIs with a strong focus on governance, on API governance.
Fantastic. Anyone else?
I would say that the more a bank shows to have a good management of their products and other products integrated, that will certainly help their for the client retention and their client loyalty. No, to give these easy ways to their clients to solve their day-to-day issues, that will certainly bring them this loyalty.
That's great. You don't want your enterprise customers moving to a different bank because they're able to provide that real-time reconciliation.
Exactly.
Jose, let's leave the last word to you.
Okay, no, I will just remind those companies that the host to host is solid, but it's the past. Now you can do the things real time, and on the way you can save time and money from your company. So what's not to like?
Wonderful. Okay, thank you all. Next time when we're back, we're going to do a lightning round of different use cases and see which ones banks should be thinking about implementing first and which ones they might want to hold off until they've got a bit more maturity in their API strategy. So be ready for some quick questions coming at you all next time. Great. Thank you all for being here, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.